Good afternoon and welcome to another read-through of a tale from the Complete Griselda by Oliver Dickinson. This will be the 16th story in the volume Serious Money, which appeared in Tales from Reaching Moon number 3 in 1990. It's a warm, sunny afternoon. I thought I'd do a bit of reading in the nook rather than doing this for bedtime, but you can listen to it anytime you want. I've got a nice hot cup of tea. Serious Money. One hot afternoon, I'm taking my ease in Loudalinas and thinking about Swifty. And in a little while I'll explain why, but first I must tell you about Swifty. For at one time he really is quite a prominent character in Pavis. For many citizens consider it a great loss to the community when he departs. Now Swifty is so called because he's a very rapid guy in every way, shape, manner and form. In fact, he does the finest impression of a guy in two different places at once that you will ever see, which is partly because of all the legwork he puts into his activities, but mostly because he fears that if he stays in one spot for too long, someone may catch up with him, and at all times there are likely to be persons wishing to catch up with Swifty who does not wish to have catch up with him, in case it is injurious to his health. For Swifty is a hustler, and he is always promoting persons into laying out their dough in ways which prove to be unwise and also expensive. And furthermore, he's an expert at telling the tale, and even has experience of the old shakedown, which it is most impolite to call blackmail. And in fact, for any dodge that requires nothing but a fast brain and tongue, Swifty is your man. Now, you may think that such a guy will not last long in Pavis, where there are so many guys, and dolls too, who are ready to resort to violence if they are sore at somebody. But Swifty is very good at rounding himself up with persons who wish him harm, if he can get them talking, and he displays remarkable skill at the quick getaway if he cannot. Then he must lay low, of course, but he's also very good at this, being what the storytellers love to call a master of disguise. Indeed, it's generally agreed that the way that Swifty can make himself look like somebody else is practically uncanny, and very few people can tell you what he really looks like, except that he is short and constant on the move, and when I'm not seeing him often, I tend to forget his looks myself. But one of the most remarkable things about Swifty is the amount of work he puts into his scams, whatever kind of score he is involved, and they really are works of art, and many citizens will tell you that he is a trickster at heart. Also, they are often very comical, except to his marks, and this is of benefit to him, for it causes many who have unfinished business with him to forgive and forget, because a good laugh is not so easy to come by in this man's town. Moreover, Swifty has plenty of sense and is never too greedy, for a mark who loses all may become quite obsessed with getting even, and keep on a con artist's tail for so long that it completely hampers business and becomes a great nuisance. But it is because one of his most comical scams that Swifty finally has to leave Pavis. This scam is known to one and all as Bruise Anonymous, and is the most famous thing that Swifty ever pulls off, although only old-timers such as are in Pavis for more than a year or two will be familiar with the story. It all begins when Swifty starts going around among charitable and well-intentioned persons, especially those who are not too bright, and he is promoting the idea that there are brews out there who repent of their sins and wish to be cured of their evil ways, and they deserve encouragement and support. Now, even charitable and well-intentioned persons who are not too bright are not such suckers as to swallow such a proposition without evidence, but Swifty claims he can produce such brews and will show them off in conditions of great secrecy, such that the Stormbull cult does not get in to hear of it. For the Stormbulls are quite unwilling to listen to reason when it comes to brews, but will hold fast to the proposition that the only good brew is a dead brew. So Swifty arranges meetings while out of town to view his brews, and they are most convincing indeed, so he works up quite a bit of support. In fact, he even interests one or two sages who are willing to pay good dough to talk to brews and learn of their ways, because sages just naturally love to collect such useless information. Finally, the grand inaugural meeting of the society to reclaim brews is announced, but no brews show up, and neither does Swifty, and all the funds collected to support these repentant brews are also missing. In fact, these brews turn out to be a bunch of tricksters down on the luck who are hired by Swifty, although the tricksters will be happy to pull such a stunt for nothing because that is the way they are. There are glum faces around town when this comes out, but most citizens laugh themselves sick, including the Stormballs, who go about saying it is a good lesson to anyone who will believe that chaos can change its nature. But they start to sing a different tune when it's learned that Swifty includes healers among his marks, for all the straight colts are very down on wronging healers in any way. Indeed, Swifty becomes quite unpopular with the colts when this gets about. But the main reason for his departure is that some of his marks have a little influence, while others are willing to lay out more dough on getting him nailed, so that if he stays around Pavis, he will be in quite a spot. What with law officers and bounty hunters and cult glory seekers turning at the town upside down looking for him. So he clears out of Pavis altogether with his customary speed, and nothing is heard of him for so long that many believe him dead. And most do not care a bent clank, for after all they have other things to worry about, such as paying the rent. Now the reason I come to be thinking of Swifty is that all of a sudden the guy takes to infesting Lilinas, who is Swifty's meat if ever I see it. He wishes to be thought of as a great adventurer, and is forever boasting of his exploits, and the loot he wins, and the knowledge he acquires. But he's playing to one and all, he's just a rich guy playing at it, for he always is wearing fine clothes and carrying good weapons, and is plenty to spend, which is most unusual for adventures around Pavis. His name is Avidius Tiro, which is a lunar kind of name, and to hear him tell it, he stands good with the Lunars, for he loves to speak of dining with the governor and other high-ups. In fact, it is hard to see why he chooses the Lilinas rather than some joint with more tone to do his bragging in, but he may figure that his bluff will be courting Gimpies, where they have more of the real thing when it comes to adventurers, and furthermore he's getting a break, because Griselda is hardly ever in Lilinas at this time. For Griselda will express open scorn and disbelief very readily, if she feels this is called for, and has very little time for such blowhards as Avidius. But no one else cares to take anything up with him, for he acts as if he knows how to handle his fancy weapons, and well enough for any of us. While I'm regretting Swifty's absence, the door crashes open, in rushes Topknot. He fetches up against the bar in record time, closely followed by a tough-looking doll and a little guy who looks to be nobody much, neither of whom I recollect seen before, and he's yelling, "Drinks on the house! We hit it!" Naturally, there's quite a rush to the bar, but Lilina folds her arms in the way she has when she's going to be very hard to convince. "Show me the colour of your money," she says. "I hear this drinks on me tune before." "We're not trying to pull anything," Lilina says Topknot, somewhat indignant. "We clean up, for a fact. Say here." And he opens his pack and pulls out a pouch from which he spills necklaces and rings and such like onto the bar, all glinting most prettily indeed. There is much whistling and exclamation, but Lilina doesn't seem to be too impressed. "How am I supposed to know what this is worth?" she growls. "It may be junk got up to look like the real thing, for all I know." "Ah, come on," says Topknot. "I seem to remember you taking stuff for drinks before, and I think you know more about it than you're suggesting." All right, says Lilina. "I take this," and she points to a hefty-looking bracelet all set with stones. But now the doll speaks up and says, "Hey, that is going to be worth more than a round of drinks. I am any judge." "And who are you?" says Lilina, rounding on her. "And how do I know you can trust your judgment? You may be in with Topknot to con me," which is the most impolite thing. But then Lilina is famous for saying impolite things. But the doll stays cool and even smiles a little. "I'm Elsa from Adari," she says, "and I have no interest in trying to con you out of a few drinks for other people. I'm after serious money. Now, I may not be an expert, but my parents are jewellers, so I know a fair bit about such stuff, and to prove it, I will even give you an estimate on those earrings you wear, which are nice, but cannot cost you more than 10 lunas, tops." Lilina goes red at this and looks ready to blast, but this Elsa continues to look at her coolly, and finally she seems to deflate and says, "Okay, go ahead and pick out something that will cover around before some of these characters up and die on me." So Elsa pulls out a small string of purple stones that she sells is worth maybe 20 lunas if you're selling, and Lilina agrees to take it at this value and start serving, which is surely a great relief to one and all. Elsa and Topknot and the little guy, who is known to them as Brains, take their drinks to a table and spread out their hall, and most of those present, including Avidius, gather round to watch. Elsa does most of the valuing, but she calls in Brains on many items, and he surely displays expert knowledge, such as when he identifies one piece as a leftover from the old days when Pavis was a great city, before the nomads bust everything up. But this is only a small item, and the rest is mostly low-value stuff. And Topknot begins to look sorrowful as he realises that his big haul is not so big after all. Although there is enough to keep them for a season or two if they are not aiming to room in some high-class place, like Jareen's around the corner. Finally, there is only one piece left. and this looks not like nothing whatsoever, for it's just a pendant of dull red rock with no shape to it, hanging on a chain of grey metal that may be lead. Well, says Elsa, I've never seen anything like this before, for sure, and I do not know what it is doing with the rest, when it's not even pretty. But I guess it may be some curio. But Brains seemed quite excited. Then I'm smarter than you, Elsa, he says, for I may be wrong, but if I am guessing and have just one guess, I will say that this may be a piece of true stone. Now, at this, we all lean in to have a closer look. For although we all hear of how magical true stone is, and also how valuable, none of us have ever seen it before. Topknot picks it up and squints at it, but then he drops it with a laugh. You're telling me that this lump is a piece of the famous magical true stone, he cries. This has to be a gag, and you do it well. You really have me going there for a moment, but everyone knows that fake true stone is one of the oldest cons in Pavis, and seeing that this is with cheap stuff, that is what I will take it for, at best. In fact, I see fake true stones that look better. Now Avidius decides to horn in, for he too is looking excited. Not so fast, he says. This does indeed look like a genuine piece that I want to see, and everyone knows that true stone does not look much anyway. But there is an easy way to find out. Take it to the sages for an authentication. Mister, says Topknot, if we can afford to pay the fees the sages charge, why will we be adventuring? Besides, it not will be wise for us to let on that we have something that may be magical, for it comes out of the rubble in what you may call an unorthodox way. If it is genuine and the lunars get to hear of it, we are dead ducks. Well then, says Avidius, why not let me take it to the sages for you and pay the fee, for I can handle any problems with the government. Of course, I will be entitled to a fee for this service, and to repay my costs. I think 10% of the value will be reasonable. Indeed, I can even cast you a magic finding spell that will show you whether it is worth bothering with at all. But for that, I will have to charge extra. I have no wish to mistrust you, says Topknot, though the chances are that he is absolutely brimming with mistrust. But it'll take me more than your word to persuade me into letting you go off with something that may be true stone, though I appreciate your offers. Just then, the door opens again, and in walks Griselda. She's looking fairly cheerful, and gives us all a big hello. What is coming off? She asks. Is someone demonstrating a trick? Topknot explains the whole deal to her, and introduces Elsa and Brains as his associates, while Avidius introduces himself and expresses his pleasure at meeting a living legend, which causes Griselda's eyes to narrow for a moment. She peers at the piece and says, well, I know true stone can be read, so it's not impossible, but see here, if you're having problems making a deal, how about this? I will accompany Avidius to the sages and make sure he doesn't pull anything. Of course, I will have to expect a little something for my trouble. Topknot groans. It figures he will try to horn in on this, Griselda, but that seems fair. Not to me, cries Brains. She'll be watching him, but who will be watching her? Everyone is quite startled to see this little guy coming on so strong. Griselda glares at him and says, do you have the nerve to suggest that I will try a heist? While Avidius says very huffily, I can look after myself. But Brains seemed quite unaffected by Griselda's glare. You have quite a reputation here and there, he says. We have no more reason to trust your word than Avidius. Avidius says, where serious money is involved, people can easily lose such scruples as they may possess. Griselda keeps up a glare for a second, and then she relaxes and asks, you must have plenty of moxie to talk to me like that. But of course you're right, I can see where you get your moniker of Brains. Okay. Why do you not come along to see fair play, and Avidius and I will leave our weapons here as proof of good faith? Hey, cries Avidius, how do I know you'll not both jump me? I've no reason to trust any of you. Well, it looks as if this one will run for a while, but now Elsa intervenes. Let us all keep calm, she says. I can see a way to protect everyone's interest, and she proceeds to outline a most complicated plan that I cannot make head or tail of it. But the upshot of it is, Avidius is first to use a spell on the item to see if it is magical. So he gets out a pointed stone on a string and mutters over it, and right away the stone points at the pendant. So it figures to be magical in some way, and everyone starts getting excited. Then Griselda takes a nice belt ornament for a fee, and the rest goes into Topknot's pouch. But this is handed over to Avidius, who gives a fistful of nice golden wheels from a money belt in exchange. And later I learn that this is in case the item turns out to be magical but dangerous, or cursed, or unusable, as magical items are apt to be more often than you will imagine. Then Brains picks up the pendant, off he goes with Griselda and Ovidius, who leave their weapons on the bar. No sooner are they on their way than Topknot and Elsa look at each other agreeing. Here is the serious money, says Elsa, and they clink their mugs and down the rest of their drinks, and are off out the door with exceptional speed, and it seems to me that Topknot is chuckling. Naturally, this causes the whole bar to speculate no little, and quite some. But although it is clear that something shifty is going on, no one can figure it out. It's not long before Ovidius and the others return, and we know this because we can hear Ovidius howling even through the door. When he comes in, he's looking completely stunned and he's crying, "Worthless! I cannot understand what goes wrong with my spell." And he stops dead in his trap when he sees that Topknot and Elsa are no longer with us. "Where do they go?" he says, and when it is explained to him that they leave hurriedly, he acts like an idea strikes him all of a sudden. He pulls out the pouch, which now proves to have in it not the stuff that we see before, but pebbles and strap ends and such like trash. "Cheated," he yells, and he rounds on Brains and grabs him by the shirt front. "You're part of this," he cries, "and maybe I'll take what I lose out of your hide," and has him nearly off the floor and looks about to bean him. "I know nothing of this," cries Brains. "Can you not see I'm cheated too? I get no share of the dough you give them, and I doubt I will ever will. I did not work with either before, but I'm new to this town, as anyone here will testify." Ovidius seems to be half convinced, but he continues to look most unhappy, and does not let Brains go. Now Griselda, who is acting very calm during this, speaks up. "All is not lost, Ovidius," she says in a soothing tone. "Sure, this is no true stone, but it still may be valuable, and I'm surprised that Topknot does not spot it, seeing as he claims to be a top-notch expert on trolls." "How do you mean?" says Ovidius, letting Brains drop. "Well," says Griselda, "this looks very like an amulet I once see around the neck of a real high-up troll priestess, and if you think about it, this chain is probably lend, and that is the troll's sacred metal." "Then how come the sage can get no result from it?" says Ovidius. "There can be many explanations," says Griselda. "Maybe you should think, how far do you trust the sage? Does he make the spell go wrong? For his own ends? You're a guy with experience, I can see. And you must know that such people are not always honest with items of rarity and are involved." Anyone can see that Ovidius goes quite a bang out of Griselda treating him on her level like this. And he says he will try his spell again. Sure enough, there goes the pointer, and he sighs with relief. "It must be as you state," he says. "That sage is trying something on. But what is to be done? I never have dealings with trolls myself, and I'm not ready to start now." "No problem," says Griselda. "I have contacts. Well, I have to charge you. It's no easy matter dealing with trolls, even when they know you. And I must spend a bit to meet anyone important. Naturally, I want a percentage of any price, also for my tip-off." Ovidius pulls a face. "I'm already let in for a considerable loss," he says sourly. Is this like to be worth serious money, and how will they pay off anyway? Why with other goods? Like what they make in loot," says Griselda. "The rebel trolls have many opportunities. As to value, I will guess you may double your outlay, for such amulets are surely rare." Ovidius is obviously getting ready to agree, but now Brains snatches the pendant and says, "What about my end? So far I'm cut out completely. Yet this is all I have left of what I risked my life for, as much as those two crosses." Ovidius rubs his chin and says, "I do not wish to be hard, but I now have considerable investment in this item, and it's my spell that identifies it as magical. How about 50 to you and to Griselda? And if it is truly valuable, you shall each have 5%. Brains does not look overjoyed at this offer, but he allows that it is the best deal he can get, and hands over the pendant. Griselda sets a time for a meet-up in 2 days, and Ovidius produces more cash for them, complaining about how this caper is eating up his savings. But he is there looking eager in 2 days' time, along with the rest of us and others too, since the story gets about and generates no little interest. When Griselda steps in, the whole joint goes quiet, but she is looking no means cheerful. In fact, she's looking weary and most discouraged. She tosses the pendant down in front of Ovidius and says, "It means nothing to them," in a disgusted sort of voice. "How can this be?" cries Ovidius in astonishment. "I do not know," says Griselda. "All I know is that they want no part of it, and I'm too tuckered out to start discussing the point. I'm up all night, and part of last night too, talking with trolls, so I reckon I earn my fee, and that is the last I want to hear of it." And before Ovidius can say yes or no, she's gone again. "More money down the drain," cries Ovidius, and he sweeps up the pendant as if to smash it on the floor, but Brain grabs his arms. "Hold on," he says. "I have a theory about this. Give me the pendant so I can check it out. If I'm right, I will split with you, right down the middle." Ovidius shrugs. "What do I have to lose?" he says, and hands it over. Brain says he will bat that evening, and off he goes very fast. There is much speculation about his angle, and in the evening everyone is back and bets are being freely offered on the true nature of the painting, while Lilina is going about looking very cheerful and saying that she may buy it herself as a good luck piece because of all the extra business it brings her. When Brains finally enters, the contrast with how Griselda was looking on the previous occasion is really quite marked, for he has a smile all over his face and a spring in his step. It turns out, he says loudly, as I figure, get me a drink and I will tell all. So Ovidius also orders up a drink and Brains sits down and pulls out the pendant. The explanation is quite simple, he says. It's not the rock that is magical, but the chain. Doubtless the sage focuses on the rock, and for all I know, the trolls do too. And so they do not spot this. But the priest who checks this out for me identifies the chain as a matrix for that spell that bounces magic right back at persons who are throwing it at you, as long as your own power is strong enough. See the mark on it here. He turns over the chain to show some odd squiggle. Ovidius appears and then grins from ear to ear. Now that is a really useful item, he says. I will buy your share for 200. I believe you make a slip, says Brains, almost grinning slightly. Surely what you mean to say is 2,000. Ovidius gives a hollow kind of laugh. I cannot raise that much in ready cash now, but at a pinch I can run to 500. Brains shakes his head. We better sell it and split the proceeds, he says. I believe I know where to go. And he starts to get up. But Ovidius cries, wait, I can scrape up about 1,000 if you'll take goods, but that's my absolute limit. I swear by all the gods of adventurers. Brains stands there for a moment as if he's considering, then he nods and says, yeah, I cannot stand to see a man suffer. And they clap hands on the deal. Ovidius cleans out his belt money and throws in his jewellery and a stone-studded dagger. In fact, he just about strips himself down, but he goes off with the pendant looking as pleased as if it is really a true stone. Brains scoops up all this stuff, and then he turns to us and winks. I better be on my way, he says, before people start looking for me. But there it is. You need foresight as well as superior brain power where serious money is involved. And he slips out before anyone can think up a good question to ask. Old Gil looks towards me and closes his throat as if he's about to say something, but he's uncertain about it. But he does not get it out before Topknot and Elsa come in hastily, looking very hot and bothered. Where is Brains, cries Topknot. That chiseler is putting one over on us, but I believe. And how so, says Lilina. Well, that jewelry that we hook Ovidius with is hired, he says, and with our money, although it is Brains' idea, it costs a lot more than Ovidius gives us. We have to hide out while Brains finishes with Ovidius, as he has some plan for getting more out of him, and he will see to return the jewelry for our dough, but we get tired of waiting, and just after discovering that he leaves his lodging, and they have no idea where he goes. Before he can say any more, Griselda also comes in. Does anyone here see Brains, she says. I'm expecting to meet up with him. For what, Griselda? Says, in a nasty kind of way. Are you in this cross on us? What cross? Says Griselda. You get yours in the first part, do you not? We cannot work the rest if you're around. I set up Ovidius with a story about it being a troll item, but that's just a come-on for the real con that is a matrix, and I wish to see Brains to split the proceeds with him. Then everyone begins talking at once, trying to explain different parts of the deal, and Griselda is looking from one to another, trying to make sense of it, and all of a sudden she was and makes the door, and Topknot and Elsa are quick to follow. Most of us follow also to see what they're doing, and they are heading into Farmer's Quarter, so we keep going after them. But we are hardly started before Ovidius comes panting up, yelling that the Matrix is a dud, and where is Brains? I explain to him that this is what the Griselda and the rest aim to find out, and he joins in, and we reach People's Square a bit behind the others. But in time to see Brains crossing it at a considerable speed, Griselda only a few steps behind, and the rest nowhere. But at the gate to the rubble, there's a whole bunch of guards headed up by Constable George R. himself, and they let Brains through. But of course Griselda has to stop. When we catch up with him, she is asking why she cannot go through the gate at least, for she has urgent business with Brains. And Constable George R. is grinning and shaking his head slowly. It is lucky for you that you do not have your little sticker out, Griselda, he says. I will all be bound to take action. But as I think I can but as it is, I think I can overlook your evident wish to do him harm. But we cannot let you get at him, for he's a benefactor of the Empire and must be protected. Benefactor, cries Ovidius. Why, he is nothing but a common swindler. Strong words, says Constable George R. But you may be entitled to use such language for all that I know. He certainly plays straight with us. We get a reflection matrix at a very fair price when you consider how rare such items are. Ovidius looks as if he will burst into tears. Does it by any chance resemble this, holding out the pendant? Why, yes, says Constable George R., peering at it and frowning a little. In fact, I would say they look identical. So he sells you a dud, eh? Ovidius groans but says nothing more and stands there looking at his feet. I know there are two and he keeps switching them, says Griselda in a thought sort of way, but I never suspect that one of them is genuine. He tells me that there's some kind of spell cast on it to make it seem magical. Sounds very plausible at the time. That is him all right, says Top Knight bitterly. When you think about it, he puts all sorts of stuff over on us, and we accept it. Ovidius groans even louder. So you all take me one after the other, he says, glaring most fiercely at Top Knot and Elsa Griselda. Well, I will not forget this, maybe sure. But I'm not to one to yell for the law in such matters, and I will take some consolation from knowing that you all get taken too, even the famous Griselda. Then he turns and trudges off, moving as if he has boots full of lead. But Griselda takes no notice of him. She's just looking after where Brains goes and shaking his head slightly. You know, that guy is really good, she says. I wonder what his right name is. It seems to me I ought to hear of him before. Why? As to that, says Constable Willjar, who was listening to all this with much interest, I do not know his real name, but I understand that he is once widely known in these parts as Swifty. Well, thank you very much for sitting and listening to me read Serious Money from Oliver Dickinson's The Complete Griselda. I will be back soon with the next story, which is Worlds Apart. I've got lots of these. I've got basically the rest of the book to read. I'm very behind with these, and I thought today would be a chance to catch up. In the meantime, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please do subscribe and perhaps even listen to the others. I will do the next one very soon. Bye for now.